Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features Wolverine number 53, cover dated April 1992. So this is the Crunch Conundrum part 3 of 3, the finale, and it's an excellent and interesting cover by Marc Silvestri. Unusual pose here to see a very beaten up Wolverine. Obviously this gunk coming out of his nose should be coloured red, but that was probably considered too violent for the cover, but an intriguing looking version of Mojo. Silvestri does, he really does look devious there, and also odious. Interesting hatching too. This is the era where Marc Silvestri was studying with some attention Jim Lee and Scott Williams' art over on Uncanny X-Men and then Adjectiveless X-Men, and so you see very distinctly of this late period of his work on Wolverine, hatching and cross-hatching, in particular the cross-hatching, something that he and Dan Green took over from the Jim Lee Scott Williams pairing. And of course his model for Wolverine moved and shifted much more towards the Jim Lee model. You can see that very clearly here in Wolverine's face. So yeah, an intriguing cover to see Wolverine unconscious, and also we're getting a good look at Silvestri's work on the back muscles there, and also the reverse, or the muscles on the reverse of his arm too. Intriguing stuff. Let's open this one up to the first page. We don't get exactly a splash, but we do get a big anchor image there of Wolverine getting into his yellow and blue costume, something that Jim Lee had returned the character to over on the main Adjectiveless X-Men title. And this picks up from the end of the previous issue, more or less. I like the little detail of how he's pulling out the costume. He keeps the costume under the saddle of his motorbike. And we're getting some conversation here between Logan, Mystique, and Spiral concerning Mojo. So Wolverine asks, he down there getting his jolly, Spiral? He likes to be where the action is. He likes to watch, she says. So Mojo, in his characteristic form as a voyeur, what say we head downstairs and bark his shins, asks Logan. And Mystique says, feel the need to get suited up for this? Wouldn't want it said, Logan replies, that the universe ended and I was underdressed. Mystique, climb on the scoot, girls. Time to rattle Mojo's cage. So this is kind of a fun opening to this climactic chapter of the three-part story. Let's continue and see where we go from there. And we got a wonderful double-page spread of Wolverine aboard what he calls his scoot, Mystique on the back, and very funnily we've got Spiral here riding up on the more or less on the handlebars. That's a really great image. Imagine having to draw something like that and getting all the characters in the right proportions, getting the foreshortening right on the perspective too. Really excellent work by Marc Silvestri. So the title of this final chapter of the storyline is the Chimerical Mystery Tour. Creative team over here, script Larry Hama, pencils Marc Silvestri, inks Dan Green, but there's an assist from Hilary Barta and, interestingly, Klaus Janson. So I'll point out Klaus Janson's very distinctive pages. They come towards the end of the issue. Lettering by Pat Brousseau, and that rounds out our... Oops, sorry, it doesn't. The colouring by Joe Rosas. Kevin Tinsley and Marie Javins rounds out the creative team for this issue. So they're riding around this crater. Ever see a barrel rider, says Wolverine. Hang on, darling, you're in for a treat, he says. And so he says to Mystique there while she's concerned, listen up, Mystique, we've got centrifugal force on our side. So let's see that play out here. But they go into shadow. The rim, exclaims Spiral, we're going to go over the rim of the vortex. And Wolverine replies, that was the great mother of all time vortexes. That was a time vortex? Why weren't we swept into another continuum? Know anything about quantum chromodynamics? Asks Spiral. It's really quite simple. And Mystique just tells her to shut up. I want to be able to hear myself scream before we go splat. So interesting sequence there of them going into the shadow. And it was a another kind of vortex. Another great couple of pages here where they're falling down, and we get a nice upshot of Wolverine's masked face there. Where is that fat geek, he asks. Is this all just another one of his stupid movies? And so Mojo makes his appearance on screen, which is appropriate enough, and he is chagrined to have been called a geek. You got some nerve, you disgusting spine thing, you, he exclaims. This is really great work by Silvestri. So he's having to flatten that image in perspective too. Doesn't quite work with the nose there. The nose looks like it's got some three dimension to it, but the rest of the face, he's doing it really well there. Spiral says he's just a projection on a giant high definition TV screen. And Mojo adds ultra gas plasma, to be precise. Now really I must insist on quiet on the set. So he's going to reveal here that he's taken Jubilee prisoner. He's kidnapped her, and she's yoked there on around the neck to this chain that he's holding in his left hand, and also to this other mysterious rollerblader on the other side of Jubilee. And the big question is, who could that be? So Wolverine spots her. He starts slashing away at the ultra gas plasma screen, and then one of these reeds, plasma reeds, emerges from the screen. I love the detail of the shattered glass there. Does Mojo auteur desire the nullification of these set crashers? Asks the Wraith. With fear, pain, protracted suffering, Mojo replies in the affirmative, especially the protracted suffering. It's a really nice image there of Wolverine slashing away, and again you see some of that cross-hatching coming in to Dan Green's inking of the pencils because of the Scott Williams influence. So let's continue with this, and let's see where we're going next. Well, we've got a page set in Canada in the present, and this was all set up and established at the end of the previous issue. So we have LCD, Albert, and the Hunter in Darkness, whom LCD calls Puppy, and Puppy has directed them or brought them to an ancient Indian burial ground, and there they found a rather surprising artifact, the adamantium lace skeleton of apparently Wolverine, but it's too recent, says Albert. Had to date by comparative rate of soluble mineral leaching. The reconstruction is complete. The resemblance is creepy, says LCD when we get that reconstruction on screen here. And interesting to see Logan without any hair, but it can't really be Logan. The skeleton looks too old. Over 200 years old to be exact, Elsie, says Albert. And then we're back at the end of time at the big crunch, and Wolverine, he's still aboard he's gotten back on board his motorcycle with Mystique on the back, and off they race away from the plasma reeds as Spiral stays behind to hold them off. So one of the plasma reeds says the protein soft tissue pastlings are escaping along the vortex surface reality interface, terminate their pathetic carbon cycle life functions, kill, devolve, temporally dislocate them. So really kind of entertaining dialogue, very distinctive dialogue that Larry Hama has fashioned for these plasma raids. Wolverine here just slashing away at them. How's about getting sliced, diced, put on ice? So good stuff, good action. Interesting layout on this page where we've got 3 vertical panels, more or less the same size, and we have this really tight close-up there on Wolverine's masked face as well. That's really, really nice looking work too. You can see his clenched teeth there, done very well. And again, you're getting the cross-hatching coming in as well. So Spiral taking on the plasma reeds there. That's a really nicely composed panel. Now she's catching up with Wolverine and Mystique, and she tells them what Mojo was doing is preventing the crunch. The the vortex he created is stalling the big implosion of everything. And Logan says because he wants more footage for his holovision movies, right? Right, says Spiral, but he didn't think it all the way through. He never does. If this crunch doesn't happen, the Big Bang couldn't have happened. Without an end, there is no beginning. So Wolverine finds that interesting. Ain't this something? In order to save the universe, we have to destroy it. So how ironic indeed. And then we check in with Mojo and holding Jubilee prisoner. He says that he has got a deal for her. He says here, you can see who is holding the winning hand here, as in himself. I'm afraid your little hirsute friend is doomed, as is the entire universe, unless, of course, you and I can come to an agreement. And Jubilee says rather wisely, Professor Xavier warned me about creeps like you. Mojo comes back and says, I'm sure you did. Want to hear my deal? He says it's not too unpleasant at all. You simply consent to being my slave. And look at that massive grin on the side of his face there. Interesting visuals going on here as they kind of phase through the floor of the surface. And then we're back with the barrel riding going on with Wolverine and the two women. And Spiral exclaims, look, the swirling images within the vortex are coalescing. One of the time shifters or dimensional jugglers, interesting phrasing, trapped within the vortex by Mojo is exerting enough will to make himself known to us. So Wolverine recognizes who it is. It's Gateway. And Spiral says, look at his bull roarer. That's no Aborigine built whirligig. So the bull roarer turns into an image of Albert piloting the stealth bomber. And yeah, this is intriguing visuals, very psychedelic stuff. I know what that is, darling, says Logan. He's telling us the answer lies with Albert and LCD. So of course Spiral doesn't know who any of those are. And maybe Logan asks, what else is he trying to tell us? And then out of his mouth pops one of these cruise missiles that Albert reconfigured in the previous issue. And we're going to learn a little bit more how this comes into play in the finale of this particular chapter of the story. So Mystique asks, but what does a missile have to do with Albert and LCD? We'll see. Turn the page. And she exclaims, we've been nuked. So everything has gone into a white flash. It was just an amazing simulation, darling, just like the missile. And Spiral says it had all the wave characteristics of an antimatter implosion. So that is exactly how Albert has reconfigured the missile. It is an antimatter implosion missile now. And it's just the ticket for wrapping up this particular story. Spiral says a real one might trigger a chain reaction that could initiate the crunch. So Wolverine sees Gateway's image is gone, like somebody turned him off. And it looks like Mystique adds, and that somebody's more than likely Mojo. So they're racing towards Mojo. He's on this platform here. Your worthless freedom in exchange for Wolverine's life, he asks Jubilee. The rest of your boring, useless existence in trade for the continuance of everything for eternity. So she asks if she can think about it for a sec. Meanwhile, Mojo 6, the plasma rates on Wolverine, and this is a very cool sequence. So Wolverine grabs Mystique and throws her to Spiral, and he tells them, "You two go back and fetch that missile." So Spiral can time dance, and Logan says as he stops the bike, "I'll figure out what to do with it when I get it. Just get vortexing and find that cute little android and her good-looking pal." That's funny stuff from him. Interesting close-up there, 3/4 profile upshot of Jubilee yelling, "Spiral, you can't run out on my Wolvie." And then we get a great anchor image here of Logan. He's tensed up, he's got his claws extruded, and he's ready for this plasma wraith that is leaping towards him. She did the right thing, Jubilee, he says. A lot more at stake here than just the old Knucklehead. So, the fate of there being a universe at all. Like everything that ever was and ever will be, he says. So, I think at this point we've moved into pages that are inked by Hilary Barta rather than Dan Green. So there's a little change in the ink line that cues me into that conjecture. So nice image here of Wolverine slashing away again at the plasma raids. And Mojo here saying, soon they'll overpower him and drag him into a null time forever unless you say the word and submit. So Jubilee's defiant. She says no way, but Mojo's got a surprise for her. And this is kind of been guessable from the beginning because of the fact that the creature with the helmet, the spiked helmet, is also on rollerblades. Didn't you have the teeniest inkling who Abscissa really is? She's the you who said yes, says Mojo. And the shades of Ricochet Rita and her transformation into Spiral involved in this. So Mojo always, or rather someone with a history of interfering and giving people like devil's bargains and changing their bodies once they make the bargain. So there we go. And we can see what a husk the Jubilee who took his offer is. And then the scene switches to Canada in the present. And we have Spiral and Mystique arrive. And so they spot LCD and Albert and enter into the stealth bomber. Now, LCD is not happy with their arrival. She tells them to back off. You tawdry trollops aren't doing diddly with my cruise missile until I find out what's happening here. So, Mystique says, we need your missile to save Wolverine in the far future. And LCD is baffled. She says, if Wolverine is in danger in the future, how come he's dead in the past? So, that's one of the things that any time travel story will throw up, like these kinds of temporal anachronisms and twistings and turnings. So Spiral's got an explanation for that. Oh, that thing, that's just a relic from an alternate time string. But if it's so important to you, I'll send you back to unravel it. But first you hand over the missile. Deal? So a couple of deals on offer in this chapter. Speaking of the deal that Mojo has offered Jubilee, he's there insisting, come on, be my slave. I'll save him. I really will. Of course, I'll send him back to a nasty, primitive time peopled by savages. So Wolverine sees the cruise missile arriving. The ladies came through for me. And here back in Canada, this is really interesting. They begin to forget what happened in the future as the time stream rebalances. So Spiral says, we sent the missile ahead and we sent the two androids and their friend back. But why did we do that? Why did I leave the vortex to the future open? And then Mystique asks, is this clawed skeleton the remains of who we think it is? I'm sure we knew all these things, but the memories are fading like last night's dreams. The more I grasp for them, the faster they waft away. Gone. And Spiral says they were dreams, Mystique, dreams about the future. So Wolverine here sticks his claw right into the nose of the reconfigured cruise missile, climbs aboard it, kind of shades here of Dr. Strangelove, and he's piloting the missile towards Mojo. Guess what, Mojo? You're it, he says. So Mojo thinks he's bluffing. What about Jubilee? What about yourself? And Wolverine, when crunch comes to it, says, if we don't stop you, everything we ever did will never have been. I reckon some of those good times were worth this. Besides, you sure ain't offering any alternatives if you catch my drift. So, Wolverine playing like an ultimate game of chicken with Mojo at the end of time. So Mojo there roaring, he's going to radically discorporate us, save him, save yourself, but most important of all, save me. But Jubilee there, I really like the kind of cartooning as her hair is blown back by his yelling. And she kicks him right in his fat gut. Get real, Mojo, and chomp a tic-tac while you're at it. And so the hollowed out husk Jubilee disappears from the scene, and that's because she didn't take the bargain, and she's leaping off this platform to go join Wolverine on his bike. Meanwhile, in Canada, the time vortex is twisting there, and Spiral is trying to remember now, why did I leave this little vortex open? Who or what was supposed to come through it? Mystique says, maybe you should redirect it someplace where they have the facilities to deal with the unknown. And Spiral here say, wasn't there a skeleton over there just a second ago? So that's gone too. Logan's skeleton. Good idea, she says, about redirecting the time vortex. Really like this panel here. This is a staple of Marc Silvestri's panel design. He'll tilt the angle of the figures, a little Dutch angle this way or the other way, and it really adds interest to the drawing. So that other when we've got Wolverine here on his hunkers on the missile still. That's a really great pose. He's saying here, these leather zombies, the best you can trot out, Mojo. They ain't hardly worth the trouble of extruding the adamantium. Now Jubilee's on the bike there. The missile came out of that cosmic twister, she says, so it must be a doorway back to our own time. Got to time this just right. So she's got the idea of jumping back to the past. Mojo here, he's got an idea too. I don't need those ungrateful time dancers to magic my way back out of harm's way. I can time shift myself just like that. So he snaps his fingers. Nothing happens. Almost had at that time. Not enough phase control. Stop. Don't record this, he says, you spheroid droid. And Wolverine there is fast approaching him. So these are the pages that are inked by Klaus Janson. Most particularly this page. Very, very definite on that. This distinctive little cutting in of a little white media into the speed lines there, that is like a hallmark, almost a calling card of Klaus Janson. Also the way that the back muscles are rendered there in the inks, very definitely Klaus Janson on the inks there, and a use of a screen tone too. So Mojo there looking to cut a deal. How about a point share in the Holovision gross, 8% of ancillary licensing? And Wolverine responds, I'll give you 8%. So Jubilee grabs him off the missile, and they're going through the time vortex. So let's turn the page and see what happens. And this is really interesting from Hama. So we turn the page, we've got a tight close-up on Wolverine's eyes, and he's in the middle of a game of poker with Nick Fury, The Thing, Beast, and Gambit. And there's a telephone call for him. So we've got Reed Richards here. So obviously this is taking place in Four Freedoms Plaza, as it turns out. It's from Jubilee. Collect. Xavier transferred it here from the Academy. So Wolverine there says, figures, excuse me, gents. And we've got Gambit there talking about how Logan has lost a cool $5,000 to him in the course of the game. So he doesn't want Logan running out. So up on the rooftop, Wolverine takes the call. Asks Jubilee, what's the problem? You know, I was just thinking about you, but I had some sort of weird memory lapse or something. So on the other end of the phone line, she says, gee, that's really nice and all that. And here comes another surprise when we turn the page. And we're back to Dan Green on the inks on this final page. It looks like it's either I'm pretty sure it's Dan Green on this. And I've been having memory problems too, she says, but right now I'm in a teensy little bit of trouble, and could you please come over and bail me out? So Logan's asking, bail you out? Just what? Did the cops nab you for Jubilee? So she looks rather upset there and guilty looking. She says, driving without a license, speeding, resisting arrest. Oh, and customs zapped me because your stupid motorcycle didn't have an import duty stamp. So he's there exclaiming on the other end of the line, import duty? That's a made in the USA Harley freaking Davidson. I don't owe any import duty on that bike. So where is Jubilee? And you can see she's handcuffed to the handlebars there. Yeah, well, you do if the bike's in Tokyo, dude. So how did that happen? So obviously, Spiral forgetting who was in the future, and all of that, she directed here. This is it, like you put it together. What happened here is it was the suggestion, maybe you should redirect it, the time vortex, someplace where they have the facilities to deal with the unknown. So that's Mr. Fantastic. But whatever way it worked, the time vortex wasn't seen. Logan was just deposited in the middle of this card game. And as for Jubilee, she ended up on the other side of the world in Tokyo. So that's a really fun ending to this particular 3-part time caper involving Mojo. Really good stuff. So advertisement there for Death's Head 2 miniseries. You'll find reviews of that already here on the channel in the back catalogue. And there you go, no letters page in this particular issue. I do hope that you enjoyed my review and commentary on Wolverine number 53, the finale of the Crunch Conundrum story. Let me know your thoughts on this one in the comments section. Some great art in this. Let me know what you think of it. If you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like and share the video. It really does help the channel. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.